Good evening, everyone. This is going to be kind of a very short live stream because I just did the last 2 hours of a live stream and found out I wasn't live at all. You're like, oh, for Pete freaking sakes, how could he not be live? Well, I wasn't. I am very sorry about that. I don't know why. They acted like I was being watched, but I wasn't. And I'm like, oh, for Pete freaking sakes. So... Now that I'm actually live for real this time, and I didn't realize I wasn't, we're going to have a little discussion. First of all, I'm sorry. I thought I was live and I wasn't, so there you go. But it is Palm Sunday, and we're going to have a brief discussion about memory. And the reason we're going to do this is because of all the things that's been happening. Well, first of all, I wanted to start with this. I want to show you what kind of ratings I've been getting. I want to first apologize to Crazy Josh Cravey because, like I said before, once again, I screwed up and thought I was live and I wasn't. And that really upsets me now. But anyway, I wanted to go through my ratings over here. I now have 1,874 people watching me on a regular basis. And on top of that, I did a lot of advertising on Facebook and Twitter. I'm sure you guys saw all of this. And with that advertising, what has happened is that I have gotten a lot of watch time. I've gotten over 2,000 minutes of watch time in the last, say, 48, 72 hours. That's a lot. That's really quite a lot. And that's the good news. The bad news is that, number one, the stores over here are now going to have us standing 6 feet apart in a very long line. Okay, what it is that people are not doing the social distancing that they're supposed to do, so now they're going to have everybody standing 6 feet apart. The second thing I want to tell you is I work in retail, and a lot of retail is now going to make us all wear masks. Now, I want you to note something here, and this is why I'm going to bring up the subject of memory. And this is very, very important, because if you read the articles from Dr. Anthony Fauci and Dr. Mark Siegel, they said that these measures that we're taking right now is not going to stop the coronavirus, but instead is going to slow it down. Now, there's a big difference between slowing something down and stopping it completely. Do you understand the difference? Okay. So, it is very, very important that you understand the difference between slowing something down and stopping it completely. Now you say, well, I never read any of that. Now here's the thing. And I'm going to use the Bible as an example as to why you should know speed reading and memory techniques as well as what I just told you. And here's the reason why. The reason being is that if you know this stuff, you can better understand and comprehend what's going on around you. Do you know right now that there's an article about how the people of Saudi Arabia have been flooding the market with oil? Do you know that's not necessarily to your benefit? You think, oh man, the gas prices are so cheap. Why don't you read the article and see what it's really doing to the markets? It's not good, people. It really isn't. I also want you to take a look. There are articles out there right now telling us that over 90% of the medicines that we take every day are made in China. Whoops! Isn't that the same China that gave us this virus in the first place? Think about that. Think about that. But anyway, so why am I going to refer to the Bible? I don't normally give this kind of stuff, but I want to talk to you about stuff like this because now you're going to get more curious as to why you should learn how to speed read and memory techniques. Now, first of all, I want to tell you something. And this is very, very important. Not everybody learns at the same rate of speed. Okay, even when I first mastered the speed reading and the memory techniques that are clearly listed in the Harry Lorraine memory book, I didn't grasp this right away. You got to keep in mind, when I first figured all this out, it was late 80s, early 90s. I had just got out of high school and just found this, just quite by accident. And I didn't grasp this right away. And when I went to work full time, I was kind of tired. And when you're tired like that, you're not going to be able to do this as well as you would otherwise. Okay? So, anyway, I'm going to read this to you, and it's very important that you understand this, and I'm going to do this for all posterity here. If you will go to Matthew chapter 5, verse 13, it says, "You are the salt of the earth." Now, let me tell you something. This scripture here has a more significant meaning than what you've been originally told, and I'm sure that there's a lot of pastors out there who have not told you this extra meaning. Did you know that as we trade coins, okay, we barter with coins and paper currency here in the United States today, did you know that they used to barter with salt? Now, I grant you that the Roman Empire dealt with coins too, no question about that. Even the Bible tells us as such. But they also bartered with salt. Now that gives an extra meaning to all this. It says, but if the salt loses its flavor, which salt never loses its flavor, but if it did, you couldn't trade with it. You wouldn't want to eat it, you couldn't trade with it either. That's significant. Okay? What Jesus was trying to teach was he wanted you to be as bold as Peter, Paul, himself. Jesus was a very bold man. I don't know whether you knew that or not, but he was. That's a very important lesson to learn. Now, I'm going to give you an additional lesson. It's in chapter 6. If you will go to Matthew 6, Matthew chapter 6, verse 26, I want you to take a look at that real quick. He says, look at the birds of the air. Now, did Jesus just go to these people and say, hey, look at the birds of the air? No, he didn't. I'm telling you right now, you know what he did? He pointed his finger to the birds. Do you know why? Because he was dealing with a functionally illiterate society. Most of these people couldn't read. And even if they could, they worked 12-hour days, 6 days a week. When was the last time you worked a 12-hour day and you worked those 12-hour days 6 days a week? Think about it. Jesus wanted these people to remember things. Do you know why? Do you know how many times the Israelites were invaded in the Old Testament? Think about that for a second. Do you realize how much of their stuff would have been ripped apart because of it? They couldn't have kept texts like that. They could barely keep the stone tablets that God had for them back in the Old Testament, much less having all these extra texts. These people were forced to memorize this stuff. Now, let me tell you something. I know for the elderly it is kind of a struggle to remember things. I understand that. And I also know that there are people with learning disabilities and they also struggle with memory to a point. But have you seen these people in their remote and you know, they operate their smartphones? You ever seen that? If they can operate their smartphones, they can memorize things, they can learn things. It's absolutely true. It may take them a little longer, but they can. There are very few people in the world that just simply can't remember things. Most people, I would say most, many at least, but many or most, whichever one you want to use, can learn things. A lot of these people are just getting stubborn and saying, I ain't gonna learn that. Let me tell you something. Because of the long lines and the masks and everything else, and everything's being shut down all over the freaking place, you're going to have to start ordering your groceries online with this, or you're going to starve. It won't happen right away, but eventually, if you want your stuff, you're either going to have to just go over there and pick it up real quick, or you're going to have it delivered to your house. And I guarantee if you get the infection, you really will have to do that. Just keep that in mind. Are you understanding now? Are you getting it now? Now then, I want you to notice here, Matthew chapter 6, verse 28. So why do you worry about your clothing? Consider the lilies of the field. What did Jesus do? Do you know that there were lilies in the field right in front of him? He pointed to them. I guarantee you that's what he did. You think not? Think again. But let's go on. He said, how they grow, they neither toil nor spin. And yet I say to you that even Solomon in all of his glory, and I'll read this even further here. It says, and yet I say to you that even Solomon in all of his glory was not arrayed like one of these. How did Jesus know how Solomon was arrayed? How did he know that? Well, he could have heard the stories that everybody was telling him. Certainly. But do you think that there was some kind of a portrait painted of Solomon? Really? Where would that be? Do you think he would have seen that portrait even if there was one? Even if there was one dating way back when, do you think he saw it? Certainly wouldn't have been in his palace. His palace was destroyed by the Babylonians, if you'll remember correctly. Any portrait that would have been inside would have been destroyed. So how would he know? Well, I'll tell you how he knew. He's God. This proves that Jesus was claiming he was God. How else would he know all this? Did you ever think about that? But you wouldn't know stuff like this unless you had read books like this. Go ahead, try to read a book like this. If you don't have the proper vocabulary, you'll never be able to read this. Good luck. Or this. Now, I'm going to give you the titles of both of these. This one is Jesus, Justice, and the Reign of God. And it's by William Herzog II. You should check it out if you got the vocabulary to read this. And the other one is The Greco-Roman World of the New Testament Era. It's by James S. Jeffers. You should read that. I hope you do. But you need the vocabulary to read that. You don't want to be looking up every single word as you progress through the text. And in some places, that's exactly what you're going to have to do unless you know your Italian and your Latin. That's why I teach things like this. You understand? This is why I want you guys to learn stuff like this. It's very important to know stuff like this. You remember that bill I read to you in the last live stream? Do you know how long it would take you guys to read that unless you had the memory techniques and the speed reading that I have? It would have taken you forever. And that's not good. So that is why I want you to go back through my videos. I want you to learn everything I'm teaching you, because let me tell you something. There are not a whole lot of jobs out there right now. Now you think that government stimulus is a great thing. I'm telling you, at a certain point they're going to tax you and they're going to get that money back. Or you may not get as much on your tax refund this year. You say, well, I'm going to get my whole 2020 refund. What about 2021? You may not get all that back. Think about it. You may be spending your tax refund right now. You think the government can afford to give you $2.2 trillion? And you know where they're getting that money from? Did you ever research that? Maybe you should. Guess where they're going to borrow that from? Most likely China. Whoops. There's that word again, China. The very same China that gave us the virus. You should look into that. Well, basically, that was the content of my live stream to a certain point tonight. I know I spent almost 2 hours on it, not realizing I really wasn't live at all. I really screwed up. But anyway, that's the basics of what I was trying to tell you tonight. Or I tried, anyway. Jesus was teaching memory techniques back from the Bible. And you didn't even see it. I had mentioned this in the second response to Mike Winger, but now you can see it for yourself. I want you guys to go out and I want you to research how people bartered with salt back in the Roman days. I want you guys to look into this bill that they almost got passed into law. Remember, these people that wrote that bill loved the Kennedy Center and the post office more than the healthcare workers. Think about it. Do you realize what $11 billion could have done for the healthcare workers? Anyway, the other part of my live stream that I was running tonight was about remote control symbols. And the reason I did teach about that tonight, and the video, those particular videos I've got because I actually recorded them with this. Oops, that didn't do so good. But anyway, I recorded it with this because I wanted to keep it a separate video so people would actually watch them. So you get to see part of my live stream with this. Good thing I did that. Because otherwise that data would have been lost forever, and I don't want to do another live stream like that. But anyway, elderly people and people that have learning disabilities have a tough time with remote control symbols. And that's why I did that. This would probably be the first time they've had a real experience of learning from me. Now, I did want to mention one other thing. Do you know that the Decatur celebration has been canceled? Now, for some of you who watch my live streams regularly, you know this. But do you know that the Decatur celebration was canceled this year? Do you know that the Assumption Fest, the whole Assumption Fest, including parade and all, it's been canceled? You're going to see a lot of this. The movie theaters are struggling. I just saw an article about that. You may not have your movie theater for much longer. They're actually proposing building drive-ins so you can still have your movies. But here's the real kick. Your fall TV season. Wait until that one comes in. Ha ha ha. All those actors and actresses having to stand 6 feet apart with masks on. Oh, that's going to be fun to watch this fall. You guys never thought about that. Try it with Doctor Who. Think about this for a second. Doctor Who with masks and 6 feet apart social distancing. That's going to be funny as thunder. Right. You may not see another Doctor Who episode for at least 2 years. Think about it. Think real carefully. Hollywood is losing big. You may not even see a Hollywood movie for 2 to 3 more years, much less a TV series. You'll probably see a lot of animated flicks, though. You'll see a lot of animation the next couple of years, I promise you, because they can record that in a studio in their house. How are they going to actually film anything? Yeah, that's going to be fun. You may not see a TV show or a movie until 2021. And that may not even be till spring. I'm even seriously considering canceling my trip to Nauvoo because no restaurants will be open, and on top of that, no parks will be open. What am I supposed to eat at? In my car? Really? No. This is what I was talking about in my live stream, which I'm sorry you missed the whole dang thing, but I think you're finally getting this. Now, like I said, I understand that when you have elderly people and you have people that have learning disabilities, they're not going to grasp this memory stuff and this speed reading like everybody else. But it is very vital if you're ever going to have a job to start grasping this. You can get better grades because of this. You can know more what's going on in the world if you grasp this. And you'll be much better off in this economy if you do. I'm trying to save your jobs, people. I'm looking out for you. And I'm sorry I just spent 2 hours and wasted 2 hours doing nothing. But now you got it. In some ways, I'm kind of glad because the way I said it was kind of poor, and I'm sorry. But now having to condense it all, you finally are getting the idea. But I did not get a chance tonight. I know you didn't actually see it, but I didn't get a chance tonight to actually cover the bill that they almost passed into law. I was going to do that tonight, and I wanted to go with these remote control symbols, and you'll see those videos in the next few days. You're going to see all those videos, and you'll learn a lot. That was the majority of my live stream tonight that you didn't see. I am so sorry about that. But anyway, I just wanted to cover with you that yes, biblically speaking, Jesus illustrated memory techniques and well, not really speed reading so much, but memory techniques. Remember, the people of the Old Testament, they were constantly invaded. So writing things down was not going to be an exact benefit to them. Okay? They would have to hide their text somewhere that the enemy would not find it. And boy, that's not easy. And they may have, I don't know. We may never know the answer to that. But anyway, they were being dominated by the Roman Empire. Do you know that if you read about the parable of the coin, where he was saying, give to Caesar what is Caesar, do you know that those coins had pagan symbols on them when they were not allowed inside the temple, the Jewish temple? Gives a whole new meaning to that one. But see, you guys have never read any of this stuff, so you don't get these concepts. There's a lot more I'd like to tell you, and I wish I had more time tonight to do that, but I don't. But there's a lot of stuff I need to tell you guys, but I don't have that kind of time. You got to keep in mind, I'm working 36 hours a week. That's a lot of work. But I wanted to show you guys tonight, especially now that it's being Palm Sunday. Oh, and by the way, for many people, Easter is canceled, and you'll see the services on live stream as far as that's concerned. But how are you going to take communion at church? How are you going to do that? Can't be there. And getting your supplies is going to be tough too. Yeah, and it's going to get a lot tougher. This is why I teach these things. This is why I need you guys to learn them. So anyway, again, I really want to apologize for the shortness of this live stream, but I think these were the two things I covered. I wanted to cover the stuff for Palm Sunday, and I also wanted to do all this stuff with the symbols. The main thing I was showing, and you'll see the videos this week. I haven't processed them yet, but you'll see them this week. Is that when you're dealing with the elderly, especially with a Roku or they've got Comcast has their own called Flex or a Fire Stick or anything like that, Amazon Fire Stick. You have to start with the things they do understand. Let me tell you something. When the elderly, for the most part, were growing up or were going to work or whatever, they actually had VCRs. And did you know that as we, here in the United States and in Europe also, we read from left to right? Do you know that the people in the Middle East and some people, even in the Asian countries like China, they actually read from right to left? Did you know that? That's very important to know. This is the kind of information you can gather quickly if you're a speed reader and a memory expert. But if you're not a speed reader or a memory expert, you're not going to get these pieces of information, which are very, very important. And that's what I was trying to teach you guys tonight. And you'll see this in these videos that I created tonight during my live stream that you guys didn't see. I am so sorry about that. Apparently, I didn't push the last button on the live stream thing, and that's why it didn't go through. I was getting results that people were watching, but really they weren't. So, I feel so angry about that. But anyway. But you'll get those videos very, very soon, and you'll learn a lot. And I hope that you will get from what I just taught about Palm Sunday that if you go through the parables, all the parables, the parable of talents, whatever, you'll begin to see that Jesus was using symbolism. Let me tell you something. When he said the birds of the air, every time those people, after Jesus was gone, every time they looked at those birds, they remembered that lesson. Every time they looked at the lilies of the field, they remembered that lesson. Jesus designed that for that very purpose. The parable of the Good Samaritan, why do we remember it so well? Because the Jewish people didn't get along very well with the Samaritans. And it was that conflict that caused them to remember what Jesus had said. And that's exactly what he wanted, because Jesus knew he wasn't going to be there forever. He was trying to teach him something. Did you know that? So, Jesus was confident that even the elderly could remember, even if they were struggling with it. He knew they could remember. But he wanted you younger people to do it too. And so do I. Listen, people. You need to get your grades up. You need to learn a lot more stuff, and you need to learn it very quickly. Your jobs depend on it. The more you know, the better job you'll have and the more income you'll have. Do you know that if a lot of people had learned all this stuff early on, the stuff I've been teaching for the last 10 years, do you know that if they had learned that early on, they would be home right now? And this whole quarantine thing would not be affecting them as much as it is. I have to say, in one respect, Joe Biden was right. Learn to code. Because you know how your computer works, you can fix it yourself, and you don't have to take it to a computer tech and spend hundreds of dollars you don't really have. That's why you learn all this stuff. I'm doing this for your benefit. But there are going to be people out there that are going to be stubborn. And let me tell you something. I got a message for them. For those that stand there and go, well, I don't have to learn anything, and to screw you for asking. Well, I got a lesson for you. Let me tell you something. You know those long lines you now see at the stores, and if you haven't seen them yet, you will. They're already happening here in Illinois, but they're going to happen all over the country. Doesn't that remind you of something? You say, well, that reminds me of the breadlines of the Great Depression. Well, that's true too, but I bet there's another thing it reminds you of. How's Venezuela the last couple of years? You should take a look at what Venezuela's been like the last couple of years. Look at their lines. You getting it now? Is it sinking in now? This is not a time to panic. This is a time to think and learn. Use this time well and learn what I'm teaching you. So when you go back to work, you'll get your raise. You will really be worth $15 an hour. You know what separates you from $15 an hour right now? It's your education. So I can't afford it. That's why I'm here, people. I'm giving it to you free right now. Go through my videos, learn everything I've taught you so far, and if you do that, I'll continue the lessons and I'll go even better. Okay? So, I hope you got the message I was trying to teach you. When you look at the birds in the air, think about Matthew chapter 5. When you think of the lilies of the field, think of Matthew chapter 5. When you think about okay, screw that. Matthew chapter 6. Sorry about that. When you think of the salt, think of Matthew chapter 5. When you think of the lilies of the field and the birds in the air, you think about Matthew chapter 6. You know, the people on Palm Sunday are using these scriptures to calm you down, get you to quit worrying. But they're missing the point. They have a good point, but they're missing the better point. You're supposed to be memorizing all this. When you look at the birds of the air, you're going to remember Matthew chapter 6. When you look at the lilies of the field, you're going to remember Matthew chapter 6. When you think of the salt, you're going to think of Matthew chapter 5. Jesus wanted you to do that. Didn't Jesus say that he would put his words in everybody's heart? He expects you to remember this stuff. If the Jewish people of the Old Testament memorized, and yes, they did, you can check this out, they memorized the Old Testament, why aren't you memorizing all this stuff? You can memorize so much more than you think you can. I know, I've had years of experience on this. Once you get the techniques mastered, you can do this. Read Harry Lorraine's memory book, then go over and go through my memory videos. If you need help, contact me and I'll give you all the help I can. And then on top of that, take it one step further. Shoot, you remember what I told you just a few minutes ago about God saying that Jesus was saying to everybody, I am God because I saw Solomon when he was arrayed in all of his clothes. How else could he know that unless he was God? He couldn't have. You can say from the descriptions that you've given me, but that's not what he said. He said, nothing that Solomon wore compared to the lilies of the field. Now, how else would he know for sure how Solomon was arrayed unless he was God? There's no other way. Did you guys think about that? This is why I told you this stuff. I thought it would be a perfect time on Palm Sunday to go through Matthew chapter 5 and 6 and prove to you that Jesus wants you to memorize things. And now that you have Harry Lorraine's memory techniques and the speed reading to go along with it, you can do that. There's no reason for you not to do it. Alright. Well, sometime this week, you will start seeing videos coming up from me about those DVD symbols. And that was a part of the live stream you didn't get the chance to see, and I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry I'm going to have to cut this live stream short, but I do have to work tomorrow, and I'll have to work the next 3 days, and that sucks. But anyway, I wanted to thank you guys very, very much for watching this brief live stream. I will next week, if I get a chance. Well, I won't get a chance on Thursday. I won't. But next Sunday, I should be able to get a chance to. And I will tell you, another thing I will tell you is that even though it's better in the grocery stores now, I am still having to go from grocery store to grocery store to get all my stuff. And now I'm going to have to stand in line with a mask. Think about it. I'm going to have to go to work with a mask. Not to stop the virus, just to slow it down. Think about it. And where did this virus start in the first place? It started in Wuhan, China. But then a guy went to China, went back to Seattle. Now think about this. In January, okay, we're 3 months into this. He went to Seattle in January. He was at an airport. He had flown in from China. And anybody that met him and went all over the United States, they most likely started this pandemic. Do you know that Canada and Mexico right now have closed their borders? I seem to recall that Donald Trump tried to do the same thing here in the United States. How'd that go down? Think about it. Yeah. So I want you to remember all this stuff. You have the speed reading, you have the memory techniques. This is why. Do the research. If you have the speed reading and memory techniques, it will not take you very long to do this research. If you don't, it might take a little longer. But these are the reasons why you need these techniques. Think about what I'm telling you. Do your research. Learn your stuff. And in the days to come, I'll tell you more. And yes, at some point, we will get back to playing video games too. But keep in mind, I have to work over 30 hours a week. Yeah. Doesn't leave me a whole lot of time, especially when I have to help with the lawn mowing around here, and I have to help clean the house, and there's little projects that have to be done in the house, and so on and so forth. It's not real easy for me to do anything. So keep that in mind. All right. Well, I want to thank you guys very much for tuning into this very brief live stream, which actually was 2 hours long, except it didn't actually go through. Oops. And I will tell you more in a future video. You will see those DVD symbol, not DVD, but remote control symbol videos popping up soon. I probably won't process them tonight, but I'll get them up and you'll see that I was doing a live stream. And I want to thank you very much for tuning in, and I will tell you more in a future video, so I'd like for you to stay tuned.